Well, hello again. Here's another issue for the yes or no treatment. Wow, this is a big one that gets people really excited. The question is gun control a good idea? Well, this is really principally an American issue because, to be honest, the problem that exists in America is largely avoided in most other Western countries. You're in Europe, certainly. So we have to talk about America on this one, unfortunately. So what's the situation? A lot of statistics suggest that the number of people murdered with guns in America is, very high. Every once in a while, altogether too frequently, I'm afraid, there will be a massacre somewhere, a mass shooting. Someone goes crazy with an assault rifle, a high-powered gun of some sort, kills a lot of people. Everybody starts talking about gun control again, and then it dies down, and they get shouted down by the people who want to keep their guns. So it's an ongoing, perhaps intractable, perhaps perpetual problem in America. So I think we really should deal with it. Let's look at the arguments. Let's try and summarize why some people think we should have gun control, even very tough gun control, or whether we shouldn't have it at all because, it infringes liberty and that kind of thing. Okay, let's start going through some of the arguments. First of all, let's look at the yes side, those who say yes, we should have gun control. To begin with, I suppose one of the biggest arguments centers around the number of people who get murdered with guns in America, and for that matter, the number of murders. Over many years, there have been kind of three groups of murderous development statistics in the world. The number of people that get murdered in Europe and Britain is at a particular level. The level is twice that in the USA, and the level is twice that in Russia. So there are vastly different levels of people getting shot and killed, and it's a national disgrace. And so much of this arises because of the availability of guns. The second thing is that the argument that claims that the amendment to the Constitution that provides for the right to bear arms has been considerably challenged and modified over the years, and in particular, judges have ruled that there is no right to carry a concealed weapon. And there are other restrictions that subsequent court decisions have imposed. So the whole idea here is that that constitutional amendment, right to bear arms, is not an unfettered license to bear arms, but under certain restrictions. Number three, those states which have tough gun laws simply have lower murder rates. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that would be the case and why that might be. But nonetheless, it's a fact. And you will often see advocates of the free distribution and ownership of guns saying the opposite. Well, it just isn't true. The data is there, and it's unequivocal. Number four, the fact that there are guns in the home leads to quite a big problem. And in fact, an astounding figure that I recently read was that of the total number of people who die as a result of a gunshot, about twice as many of those murdered are actually suicides. How awful is that? And so therefore, the notion of there being a gun in the house simply makes suicide a lot easier. How else are you going to commit suicide? Jumping out the window, or asphyxiating yourself in the garage with carbon monoxide or whatever. A gun is just easier. So it facilitates what is probably one of the most saddest moral steps that anyone can take. The conclusion that their life is so awful they can't bear to live any longer, and we make it easier by having guns everywhere. Another quite important point is that there are countries like Switzerland and Finland are two that come to mind that have a lot of guns per capita, but they have very few murders. The murders per capita are a tenth or a 20th of what they are in the US, and that's because they have very strict gun laws, very strict registration, follow-up, control, and so forth, the kind of things that are widely unavailable in America and rejected by the pro-gun lobby. Here in Britain, there's a particular case in point. About 33 years ago, we had a tremendous mass murder. Everyone remembers this as the Hungerford Massacre. Chap with some high-powered multi-shot guns went into an area and killed a lot of people. As a result of that event, some very strict gun laws were introduced, particularly the availability of any kind of multi-shot firearm. And in the interim period, we've had just one mass shooting since then in the last 33 years in Britain. Last year in America, there were 250. So you just simply can't overlook it. From the standpoint of not getting killed walking down the street, I'm glad I live in Britain and not in America. And if in America, by the way, you're going to choose a place to live and stay safe and protect your children, I'd be inclined to live in those states that have tough laws because they have fewer murders. Oh dear. One of the arguments for having guns in the home are to protect yourself against assault and armed invasion and so forth. But some figures have been kept on this by police organizations and so forth. And the conclusion is that almost never are guns used to defend oneself against an armed robber. There just isn't the time to do anything about it. So if the armed robber is going to kill you, he or she is going to kill you. Furthermore, if the armed robber thinks that you have arms in your house, that there's a revolver in the bedside table kind of thing, one would be forgiven for thinking that robber is going to be more likely to shoot you than leave you be because he doesn't want to get shot himself. Oh dear. Another thing is that having guns in the house attracts robbers because they are very attractive robbery targets. First of all, they want guns themselves so they can do more of whatever they do with guns. But secondly, the fencing potential, the resale potential through illegal channels is quite good for guns. You can sell a stolen gun for a fairly substantial percentage of the amount of money you'd have to pay for it if you bought it in Walmart. Next, there are grave social costs associated with the violence caused by guns, and particularly the pressure on hospitals. And an astounding figure that I read recently is that over 80% of those admitted to hospital with gunshot wounds who need treatment are on Medicare or Medicaid. In other words, they're given free health care and being patched up and so forth on the taxpayer, something that results in an enormous cost to the nation and for that matter to the whole social fabric of the country. And then finally, I would just say that quite a high percentage of people are of the view that the crazily dangerous weapons should be banned. These assault rifles, these multi-magazine guns that have 20, 30, 40 cartridges that can be fired off at a clip. I mean, how can one possibly justify having weapons like that made available to the public, and for that matter, even in existence, so that they can be stolen from somebody who already has them? Well, golly, there is a pretty impressive bunch of reasons why we should have gun control. But there are those who say we shouldn't have it; it's an infringement. So, well, let's look at their arguments. The first and most famous argument was that they have a right. They have a right to bear arms. They have a right to own guns. The Constitution provides for that. It's always trotted out as a reason. Nothing illegal about it. Any law that would change that would be against the Constitution and against the American way. Similarly, a lot of people just simply don't want to be told what to do. They don't want the government to be telling them that they can't bear arms. They simply resent interference in their lives. Next, many would say that it's not gun ownership that causes crime. Gun ownership deters crime. I was traveling once in Arizona, and I saw a bumper sticker that said, if you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. Well, I guess there's a certain amount of truth to that. And of course, the bad guys have the guns. They have them anyway. So what's the point of restricting it? You might just as well make them available to everybody, and then people at least can defend themselves. Many people believe that the mass availability of guns will help individual citizens protect themselves against any unwanted foreign invaders. It does seem unlikely that in America we could have an invasion where we had to shoot it out with the intruders. But for instance, the whole ISIS conflagration in Syria could come to the USA. So it'd be kind of nice to be able to shoot it out with them when they show up. Rather than restrict the sale of guns and the availability of guns, what is really needed is education. People should be educated in how to use a gun and how to safely store it away, because of course there are a lot of accidental deaths from guns simply because they're in the home, they're not properly locked up, or they're just lying around on the kitchen table, and so the whole notion of a bit of discipline in the home and education about handling guns is really the way forward, rather than trying to prevent the ownership of guns. Another possibility is that gun control laws are racist. They're anti-black. What they are really saying is that now that guns are widely available to all members of the population, the blacks are disproportionately taking advantage of the opportunity to buy them, and we don't want those black people to have them. And so therefore the notion of restricting sale is racist, bigoted, and anti-black. And finally, I suppose one of the best arguments against gun control is it doesn't seem to work. We are constantly told that we should have gun control. We make sporadic efforts to control guns, but they continue to proliferate. The murder rate continues, and so forth. So there it is. Those are the arguments against having any form of gun control. They come down mostly to a utilitarian view, which is they don't work particularly, and in any case they infringe on my rights. Well, with all of this, what's my take on it? My take is that it's an awful situation in America. And there really is only one thing you can do that makes any sense to me, and that is to have huge restriction, perhaps even prohibition, on the sale of any kind of assault weapon, any kind of multiple magazine weapon, and for that matter, such weapons should be made illegal, even their ownership, and they should be seized when possible. Those guns should not be manufactured, sold, or owned, and I would support any effort that goes in that direction. Beyond that, as to the handguns, the smaller weapons, and so forth, the situation is pretty hopeless because they're out there. The amount of guns that are available to in the hands of the miscreants will continue to murder people. So what we're really aiming for here, in my opinion, is to prevent massacres. They are really disheartening, and they are a much more troubling aspect of living in America because they're random. They could mow you down any place you go in America, any place you go. Whereas the individual shootings and so forth tend to be more familial, gang-related, and, to be honest, situations we're not too excited about. Oh dear, what a mess! How appalling this is. But there it is. I must say, I don't know what to say. And in any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure some of you will be upset by it, but in any case, if you did, please give me a like, give me a dislike, comment, subscribe, and so forth, and I'll see you at the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.